So recently, I shared how I'll be saving over $12,000 in travel this year. However, that's nowhere close to the amount I saved traveling last year. With 15 flights touching 10 airports and 9 accommodations, here's how I did it by maximizing my credit card points, redeeming for over $37,000 in value, earning the most points possible when paying directly for flights, using my credit card benefits to the fullest, and useful tips and tricks along the way. First, how did I earn all of the points required for these trips? It actually took me a while, having saved points for over 5 years without any major redemptions. But you may not be booking for 2 to 3 people every time, nor do you need to book these multi-city trips. All of the strategies in this video apply for redemptions and travel of any size, most of which require a lot fewer points. Just know that this is a marathon, not a sprint. You probably won't get one card and be flying around the world with points right away. And so in those 5 years of earning, and over 1 million points redeemed across the year of trips. These are the main ways I've earned a lot of points across Chase, American Express, and Capital One. Starting with Chase, the most important card that has helped me build the most Chase points is the Chase Sapphire Preferred, the first card I got back in 2017 when I first moved to the US. Not only did it give me a 70,000 point welcome bonus at the time, it was also my go-to card for pretty much all of my purchases for the first few years, capitalizing on 2 times points for travel and 3 times on dining, among other benefits. Combine that with the Chase Freedom Flex card I got in 2021 forms a really powerful duo, because that then unlocked 20,000 more points for the welcome bonus, as well as 5 times back for grocery store spend in the first year at the time. And in a year where a lot of us worked from home and had a lot of spend in the grocery store category, on top of the really useful and broad 5 times categories every quarter. I don't recall the exact number of Chase points used for all of these trips, but I'd guess around the 400,000 range. Next, there's American Express, where up till not too long ago was solely my Amex Platinum card. With an initial welcome bonus of 75,000 points, which has gone up as high as 150,000 if you're lucky to be targeted, it was a card that gave me a nice initial boost, but continued to give me value, earning me lots of points in a couple different ways. For example, spending through Rakuten links means I can convert that cash back over to Amex points, or getting over 100,000 points through multiple retention offers, which each required its own minimum spend as well. Yes, it does cost me $6.95 a year to keep it open, but I'm able to find enough value from the card year after year to justify it. From the hotel credit, airline fee credit, Uber credit, Saks Fifth Avenue, and Clear credit, some of which you'll hear more about later in this video. And so with American Express, that totaled about 300,000 points or so that contributed to these trips. And then there's Capital One with its flagship card, the Venture X, that I got back when it came out in November 2021. Fortunately, it was during a time I had high spend coming up and holiday season, so I was able to hit the $10,000 minimum spend to get me the welcome bonus of 100,000 points. But even that aside, the Venture X has been and still is a staple in my wallet, giving me 2 times points for all spend as my catch-all card. And so with Capital One, those points probably contributed around 200,000 points towards these trips. That leaves the rest of the points earned through methods like work trips and earning Marriott points, or from my old Marriott Premier card, or a bit of points purchasing at low rates, like when you can buy Aeroplan points for as low as 1.3 cents per point. In general though, it's good to have points across a few different currencies for a few reasons. One, it gets you more options to earn more points. If you've exhausted all the good options from one company, there's all these others you can go for. 2, you can benefit from more rare transfer partners. For example, American Express transferring to ANA, Chase to Hyatt, and even Citi at 1-to-1 to EVA. And 3, which applies more for these non-flexible points, spreading out could prevent you from losing a ton of value from devaluations. Take United or Marriott, for example. And so now that we've gone over the ways I've been able to earn a lot of points, and hopefully you too, it's time to go over all 4 of my major trips over the last year. Starting with trip number 1, and that's flying from Seattle to Taiwan with Japan, which wasn't in the original plans. We knew we had to be in Taiwan for a friend's wedding, so I used a tool at the time called Cow Tool to search through nearby airports like Seattle or Vancouver to Taiwan for those few dates. Unfortunately, Cow Tool is no longer a thing, but currently my favorite search aggregator is Seats.aero, which has a much better UI but does cost $10 a month or $100 per year if you want to search for more than 60 days. This has been a huge time saver for me, so if you're interested, there's a link down below, but this is not sponsored. Anyways, sure enough, flights did pop up flying to Taipei for 75,000 points one way on EVA Airlines, which falls under this row in the Aeroplan Partner Award chart, which just means that you can use Aeroplan points to book on one of their partner airlines. In this case, because they're part of the Star Alliance group, any of those airlines, among other great airlines like ANA, Asiana, and Singapore Airlines. And that's just one reason why Aeroplan is pretty much my favorite program. One, because it includes so many amazing airlines that fly from the West Coast over to Asia. Two, Aeroplan is a transfer partner for most of these credit card points, like Chase, American Express, Capital One, and even Bilt. Three, the points required aren't that high, where even just one welcome bonus from one credit card can be enough to fly you over in business class to Japan. And four, because of the stopover rule. Let's talk about it. A stopover is when you stop in a city that's not your destination for more than 24 hours, like an extended layover. But this stopover could be drawn out as well, with Aeroplan allowing up to 45 days. Put two and two together, and a stopover pretty much means another city you can add to your travel plans. The great part is, Aeroplan allows stopovers for just 5,000 more points, so we kind of wanted to take advantage of this during this Taiwan trip. And so for just 5,000 more points, or a total of 80,000 points, our new itinerary was from Seattle with a stopover in Taipei for a few days, and then over to our destination in Japan. On the way back, we were able to find business class flights from Taipei back to Vancouver, but we weren't able to find that connecting flight from Tokyo to Taiwan. Instead, we found a flight from Fukuoka through Taipei for a layover back over to Seattle. And so again, using the stopover perk, we first flew to Fukuoka as a stopover and then through Taipei as a layover back to Seattle for 80,000 points. That means in total 160,000 points round trip, times 2 for 2 people, so 320, although fortunately there was a 30% transfer bonus from Chase to Aeroplan, which means it only required 247,000 Chase points, with a similar round-trip business class flight at the time costing about $6,600. Dividing the two gives us a value of 5.3 cents per point. Maybe a bit lower if you start factoring in the fees, but still way higher than the 2 cents per point average most people pin these points at. Then when it comes to hotels, we ended up staying at this AC Hotel Tokyo Ginza after compiling a bunch of other hotels and comparing which one had better value. I know, excessive for some, but I personally enjoy finding the max value for my hard-earned points. Basically, I first took all the points required over all of these hotels, compared that with the cash value, and calculated how much more outsized value I was getting compared to the benchmark value of each of these points. And so because Marriott has the stay 5 nights only pay for 4 perk, that really pushed Marriott hotels, especially this one, up to the top. Spending 159,000 points covering 5 nights and saving over $2,200, pitting these points at a value of 1.4 cents per point, much higher than the benchmark 0.8 cents per point. Okay, so lessons with this trip. Be flexible if you want to maximize your points with stopovers, and use Aeroplan or similar programs that are very flexible and cover a wide variety of airlines. 2, have award searches bookmarked or use paid services like Seats.aero so you can set alerts. 3, leverage transfer bonus whenever you can. And 4, check if certain hotels have perks like the stay 5 nights, pay for 4 that Marriott does. Okay, trip number 2, and this was a big one. We found 4 seats, although I paid with points for 3 of them. Flights from Vancouver through LA to Singapore, then after a short trip to Malaysia, flying to Korea, Japan, and then home. So what's the process of finding and booking such a complex trip? First, stay organized. Although being flexible is the best, if you know you must be in a certain city on certain dates, set those first so then you can plan more flexible dates around that. In my case, I knew we wanted to be in Southeast Asia for a few certain dates. It's also good to know that flights across the Pacific Pacific are the hardest to book. So if you find availability for those first, lock that in because inter-Asia flights are a lot easier. And so for a while, I kept my eyes open for redemptions to Southeast Asia, knowing that Singapore was probably the main airport in the area. Now, as much as you can be prepared, luck always plays a part. And it did here when Singapore Airlines more closely partnered with Aeroplan, releasing a lot more business class seats through the portal, to the point where people were seeing 7 to 8 seats on a lot of these flights. So I knew I had to be quick. Fortunately, because you were organized and you have your dates and cities ready, although I wasn't able to catch a direct flight to Singapore, I was able to find flights going through LAX to Singapore. So I locked those flights in a day or two after the news for 87,500 points, which is the amount needed for this distance according to, again, the Aeroplan Partner Award chart. As for accommodations, hotels in Singapore were pretty cheap, so it made sense to just pay for them directly, and so we settled on this 30 Bencoolen hotel, making sure we used a card that gave us more points for this travel category, like the 3 times on the Amex Green or even the 2 times on the Sapphire Preferred. And for the flight from Singapore to Malaysia, given the prices were so low, I opted to use the yearly $300 travel credit from my Venture X card to cover all 4 flights, as well as earning those sweet 5 times points when booking through their portal. Now, what about the second part of our trip? Because my parents haven't been to Korea and Japan, I knew those would probably be the next 2 cities. And again, knowing that you can add a stopover for just 5,000 points through Aeroplan, the route would either be Singapore to Korea then Japan, or to Japan then Korea. After some light searching, because there was quite a lot of availability, the best flight that fit our schedule was first going to Korea on Singapore Airlines and then over to Japan. This costed us 50,000 points per person, 45 given the distance, and then 5,000 more for the stopover. For accommodation, given the situation at the time, the best choice was to go for Airbnbs or hotel apartments. So we just made sure again to use a credit card that gave us elevated points for that travel category. So to summarize so far, the flight from Vancouver through LAX to Singapore cost 87,500 points per person. Then from Singapore to Korea and Japan cost 50,000 points, for a total of 137,500 points. With a similar itinerary at the time costing $5,300, that gives us a value of 3.9 cents per point. Okay, now that we were in Japan, how did we get home? Well, there's a long story about it, which you can learn all about in this video up here, along with all the other details about this trip. But long story short, we initially locked in a flight on United Economy going through SFO back to Vancouver. However, with Aeroplan, you can actually change these award flights for just $100, meaning you can book a decent flight first and then continue to look for a better flight. In our case, regularly searching as the date got closer, which only takes like 1 to 2 minutes per day, we ended up finding business class seats direct from Tokyo back to Vancouver on ANA for just 55,000 points, given the distance falls into this lower band in the Aeroplan Partner Award chart. So paying $100 to change from United Economy with a stopover to ANA in business class direct was a no-brainer. And at about $2,300 if paid with cash, that gives us a value of 4.2 cents per point, which is not too shabby. All in all, this multi-city trip costed me 192,500 points per person, or 577,500 points overall, for a value of $22,800, or just under 4 cents per point. Again, you need to factor in fees, but still well above 2 cents per point. So a few lessons from this trip. Have your cities and dates ready, because you never know when you could be lucky and there's a huge influx of available space. 2, don't be afraid to book travel without points, especially in Asia when flights and hotels are pretty low in cost. Just make sure you're using credit cards that will give you those elevated points for the travel category, or if you're booking direct through the travel portal, even earning points that way. 3, lock in a decent flight and then continue to search. Usually the fee required to change is worth it if you're getting that much much better of a seat. And as a reminder, if you ever need to top up points like with Aeroplan, there are times where you can purchase points at pretty low rates like 1.2 or 1.3 cents per point. Alright, trip number 3 in Hawaii, again for a friend's wedding, and unfortunately there weren't that many great redemptions when it comes to flights. Most of these would be on Alaska. I didn't have Alaska points, and the premium cabins weren't that great anyways. That is until we start seeing more Hawaiian Airlines lie flat seats on these routes. And so instead for the flights, we booked directly with the airline with my Amex Platinum card so I can get 5 times points for those purchases. Where redemptions did come into play were for hotel redemptions, which were split into 2 parts. First, we used the $200 hotel credit on my Amex Platinum card to book for 2 nights at the Halipuna Waikiki, which was quite nice. We were also able to use the $100 experience credit towards our 2 nights of parking, so giving us a total savings of $300. Second, we stayed 2 nights at the Hyatt Place with 12,000 points per night, or a total of 24,000 points, saving us a cost of $672. On top of that, we applied a Friends Guest of Honors award, meaning we got awards such as late checkout, free breakfast, and free parking. Unfortunately, we didn't get upgraded to a suite, but just a bigger room on a higher floor. During that trip, we did use a couple other benefits like Hertz President Circle that comes with a Venture X and Amex Platinum card to give us a car upgrade, but you can hear more about all the benefits we use as well as the trip recap up in the video here. All in all, the main lesson here is to not be afraid to fall back for paying directly for your travels. Just make sure you use the right card that gives you the most points. In this case, the 5 times points on the Amex Platinum card is sort of like getting 10% back when you use 2 cents per point. And also don't forget about all of the other perks that come with your card, like the hotel status, the car rental status, or even the hotel credits like on the Amex Platinum. And then trip number 4 is a short one, but I also went to New York later in the year. Given it was a work trip, I had no involvement in paying for the flight, but I was able to pay for the hotel and then get reimbursed. And so because I have Marriott Gold and I still have some Marriott points, so I don't mind a bit more, the best choice was to go for a Marriott property to earn more points and potentially get an upgrade. Unfortunately, it wasn't that major of an upgrade, just a bigger room on a higher floor. But again, I did remember to use a card that gave me more points for the travel category. And across 5 days at $450 per day, that's like getting 6,750 points, which at 2 cents per point is over $130 of value for my personal use. And so my main tip here is if you have work trips and you're able to use your own card and get reimbursed later, do it instead of putting the spend on the corporate card so you can pocket those sweet points for your personal use. Now with so much flying in 1 year, upwards of 43,000 miles, you spend a lot of time at airports. So another benefit you really want to consider are airport lounges, especially when airport food can be pretty mediocre and expensive. Getting lounge access to rest, work, eat, and have drinks with you and your entire group over several times can really add up in value. But not all lounges are created equal, and not all credit cards will give you the same types of lounge benefits. So go on and check out this video so you and your group can relax in peace when traveling. See you over there.